Men of Stone, Chapter 16. Ben, telephone, Mum called down the stairs. It was Stan's mum. He was in the youth detention center. He'd busted a guy's jaw. For some weird reason, Stan's mum told me that it was wired shut. I hung up the phone in a daze. Stan was back. Fish met me at my locker the next day after lunch. "She called you too?" he said. "Yeah, last night. He's back, I guess." I don't know why, but Fish looked like a stranger to me. Everything looked strange. "Do you know where this place is?" I asked. "Downtown," he answered vaguely. "I'm going to visit him tonight. You coming?" "I don't know, man. I got this thing with Melody." "A thing?" "I don't know. Forget it. I'll tell him you said hi." I slammed my locker door and walked down the hall. Big, strong Fish couldn't handle it. I left the school then. I already knew more than I wanted to know. Claude and company caught up with me halfway home. Apart from occasional sighting at school, I hadn't seen him since the day he sent me to the hospital. "Hey, Ballerina boy, got any steps you want to teach me?" Echoed laughs from behind encouraged him, and he just smirked. "Just say when and where, jerk," I growled back. "Ooh, tough guy. Your slippers too tight?" he said, but seemed surprised. "Yeah, it's on. That's it." I leaned towards him. My heart was booming. My fists were ready. He looked around to make sure his friends were still there. "Dance this Friday, 8 o'clock, behind the gym." "I'll be there." I left them howling with empty, stupid laughter. There was no soup bubbling on the stove, no smell of cooked meat, no Zweibach golden brown on the cooling racks, no sign of life. Mum had said something about going to the travel agency with Aunt Frida to arrange for a trip home. And our trip back to, what had she called it? A place of scattered lives? I put my head down on the kitchen table. I could hear the clock in the hallway. I'd never really heard it before, never been aware of such silence that I'd welcomed a ticking clock. I must have fallen asleep, because the next thing I knew there was a crick like a boomerang in my neck. I stretched and looked at my watch. It was already 3 o'clock. If I didn't want Mum asking questions about why I was home so early, I needed to leave, now. I grabbed a couple of cookies and looked up the address of the detention center. 2 buses at least. It took me an hour to get to the formidable gates. Detention center. Nothing. This was a prison. I beeped the intercom, gave my name, and a faceless person buzzed me in. I was taken to a cold room filled with metal tables and chairs. Parents or social workers sat across from their kids with angry, worried, nervous expressions. A dozen stories. I sat down and felt a shiver all over. The hall echoed with hushed voices, the odd shrill word being quieted immediately. The door opened and Stan walked in. He looked older, decades older, and thinner. But tougher, too. Sinewy, Joni would have said. He had a shadowy face now, and in the fluorescent lights, the stubble looked like evidence of every day he'd been gone. I half stood, but the guard or whatever he was glared me down. Back down. Stan. There was no smile, of course. Almost no look of recognition from him. "I brought you some books on the way here," I blurted stupidly, not knowing what else to say. He looked down before sitting. He only touched the books to push them back across the clipped tablecloth. This was a bad sign. "Conrad, good of you to come, old boy," he said, as if I felt an enormous relief. And I felt an enormous relief of sound of his voice, even if it was husky and shadowy like his face. "Did you bring any smokes?" "Geez, I didn't think of it. Sorry, next time." He lifted one hand lazily. "No matter." "Where have you been, Stan? What have you done?" "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times," he said, quoting again. "No, just the worst of times." "What happened? Some guy, your mum said? A broken jaw? Did somebody jump you?" He looked at me then, and what I saw sent the chill of death right through me. Stone, flat and hard, where his eyes should have been. "You still dancing, young Ben?" Was he making fun of me? Him too? What? "Don't you give up too. Didn't you give up too? Isn't that what this whole stinking life is about? Hanging on for as long as you can and then just giving up? Huh, young Ben? Isn't that what it's about?" His voice rose above the acceptable level, and our guard moved a step closer. Stan put his fingers to his lips in an exaggerated whisper. "Shh, we have to behave, or else they might put us in jail." "Oops," he clasped his hands over his mouth. "Too late, we're already here. One more outburst and your visitor will have to leave." The anonymous gray person found a voice. "And that would be such a shame," Stan said softly. "My first guest, and all." The guy backed off a step. "Your parents haven't been here?" "It would cause my mother too much pain to see me in such a place," so she said. "Now my father, he didn't show up to tell me what a disappointment I was. Hardly a guest appearance." Stan was breathing heavily, but nothing else about him moved. I should have brought some smoke, Stan. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, Ben. His eyes melted a little then, just a little. There's nothing you could have done. It was coming for a long time. What was coming? Nothing. Stan, what was coming? A big old bus, Ben, and I couldn't get out of the way. His eyes wandered above my head. What are you talking about? I tried to move, get out of the way. How is he? His eyes looked panicked. Who? The guy. The guy with the wired jaw. He'll be fine, Stan. Tell me why. At first I didn't think he was going to say anything. He just sat there, but I waited. I was in a phone booth trying to work up the guts to call home. I just wanted to go home, Ben. But his guys kept yammering at me to get off the phone, and I lost it. I couldn't stop hitting him. I was just so angry at him, at everybody. Stan's hands were shaking even as he drummed them restlessly on the table. I just lost it. We all make mistakes, Stan. I sounded small and trite. You wouldn't understand, Ben. You're a good guy. You're okay. You'll be okay. His eyes told me that he didn't believe me. But before I could say anything, the gray guy took him away, saying our time was up. When they finally told me to leave, I picked up the books I'd brought. Some Russian guy whose name I couldn't pronounce. I asked the man at the front desk to give him to Sam. The first bus dropped me off close to the church where Aunt Frida had gone. As I walked past it to the next bus stop, I hesitated. Then I crossed the street. Before I knew it, I was at the front door and pulling. Wrong. The doors were locked. I kicked them with such force that they shook on the hinges. What happened to churches being open all night for weary passerbys, like in the movies? It wasn't even that late. A man in a jean jacket and a buzz cut poked his head around the corner of the building. He was carrying a computer case. Can I help you? He asked. I'm sorry. I just wanted... Never mind. I went down the stairs two at a time and tried to walk past without meeting his eyes. No need to be sorry. It's a tough old building. What do you want? Nothing. I'm sorry. You know, I might have left my sermon notes inside. If you want to go in for a bit, that's fine. He had already taken his keys out and climbing the stairs to open the door. I knew he was lying about forgetting something, and I was so surprised that a man of the cloth, even in a jean jacket, would tell a fib. I followed him. I didn't know what to do when I got inside. I think I was expecting a big, huge space with burning candles and stained glass windows. I was expecting altars, maybe choir boys. Maybe I need to stop watching so much television. But burgundy carpet and a coffee pot in the lobby and evenly spaced padded benches were definitely a surprise. I'll just be in the back for a bit. Let me know if you need anything. He looked expectant. Ben. I'm Matt, he said, stretching out his hand. I shook it. Do you guys give, advice or anything? He smiled. Now and then. Not that anybody listens. He undid his jacket and sat down. How can I help you? He was pretty young, this guy. By Aunt Frida's standards anyways. Early 40s. Probably the guy she had talked about. My aunt comes here once in a while. She likes it. I checked out the instruments and the amplifiers on the stage, except for the drums. She could do without the drums. I've heard that before, he said. You should have heard the complaints when we went from green to blue, Himmels. Oh no, I mean, she was cool with it. She's pretty cool. What's her name? I wonder if I met her. Frida. Her name's Frida. Just Frida? Like Cher? I laughed. Not quite. I couldn't think of her last name. Actually, I never thought of her as having a last name. But she's going home soon. Sounds like you'll miss her. Yeah, I guess. But that's not why. You know, I should get going. Okay, but you look like you've got something on your mind. Kinda. It's just that, well, my friend is in trouble. Your friend? He asked kindly. It took me a minute. Yeah, no, really. My friend, Stan. I guess people say that all the time, though, huh? It's their friend, but it's really them. But honest, I was babbling and lying. Okay, me then. That was a relief. Besides, he wasn't going to tell anyone. It was like that priest thing, client confidentiality. Listen, you probably want to get home, right? I got up to leave. Not really, he waved me down. I just spent an hour on the phone discussing whether we should serve farmer sausage or hot dogs at the next potluck. Believe me, I welcome something juicier. I must have looked confused. Sorry, Ben, I'm not making light of your problem. Go ahead. No offense, but but do you have the clue how things are, out there? Why don't you tell me? He said quietly. I took a deep breath. Mostly it's this guy, this jerk, whose mission in life is to separate my nose from my face. And his reason? Besides being a creep? Besides that. I was twitchy. I didn't really want to get into this. What could he do anyhow? Maybe this was a bad idea. Okay, Ben, you got this kid at school who wants to hurt you. Maybe he's already hurt you? I nodded. I could tell you that you should inform the authorities. I started to object, but then he kept talking. But you know that. I do know how dangerous it is out there. God didn't exactly plan my nose this way. He pointed to the bump on the bridge. A fight? Well, kind of. Smashed into a door running away from a fight. Actually, there were 4 guys, and one of me. I couldn't help smiling. He laughed. Nobody ever accused me of being the bravest kid on the block. But you can't always run away. He shook his head. No. But running isn't the only option. There are others. Do you know much about pacifism, Ben? I shrugged. Like Gandhi? He nodded. Well, the Mennonites have always... Mennonites? I interrupted. I almost laughed. What? He looked surprised. This is a Mennonite church. You've heard of them? There's a lot of that going around lately. He looked puzzled but continued. Well, it's fairly complicated in a way, and you'll get all sorts of definitions. But to me, pacifism means not running away from yourself. Come again? Think about it. In every society, at every point in history, there have been wars. It's always been that way. Probably always will be. People fight over land, over religion, over a girl. And it's not who's right, if anyone. It's usually about strength. Strong guys, armies, country roll over the weak, I guess. That's why it never ends. There's always somebody a little stronger. Refusing to fight means that you're saying the fighting ends here. Strength is not truth. He stopped, scratching his head. I did eventually fight that kid, one-on-one. We both ended up with black eyes, but he was the one on the floor. So, did he ever bug you again? No, he didn't. But I had grown a foot that summer. He started picking on a smaller kid. The point is, Ben, I lost something that day. What did you lose? You won the fight. Maybe the point is you got the guy off your back and onto someone else's. But I still hated the guy, and an enemy like that has a lot of power over you. I thought of all my days and nights of rage, my nightmares about Claude. Maybe. I think when you stop hating, you set yourself free. But the other guy goes free too. He thought a while, tapped the book in front of him. True, Ben, but you get to live your life bigger. I sat staring in front of me, thinking about that. I hope you'll come back sometime, Ben, and I hope things work out for you. He walked me to the doors then, ushered me through, and locked up. I said goodbye and ran to catch a bus that was pulling up to the stop. I almost got on, but then I didn't. I walked over to the park instead. Buses made me think of Stan, how he'd said he couldn't get out of the way. But maybe he could have. I had to believe that. As I ran around the track, Matt's words pounded into my head. They sounded really good in a safe, warm building. But out here? I thought of Aunt Frida, hiding in the orchard, knowing that God was listening to the songs of 1,000 languages. But could he hear mine? End of chapter 16.